Redditors of Reddit. What's your personal experience of one man's trash is another man's treasure? Story 1 found a PSP at a garage sale and they were selling it for $35. PSP just came out like a year ago and I really wanted one. Asked what was wrong with it. Guy said the screen just turned off after playing it for a few hours. Bought it, took it home and put it to charge. It came on with no issues, everything was working. That's when I realized holy the battery died and he didn't even think it needs to charge. Edit fixed some spelling errors. Story 2 went to garage sale and found a heavy leather trench coat from Germany. Paid $5 for it. Turns out it's a tank commander's from WW2, tailored by H. Boss. It's currently sitting on loan at the Canadian National War Museum as part of their static panzer display. Story 3 My roommate was rich and didn't like her mattress pad and thought it was cheap so she gave it to me and it changed my life. It was a plush foam pad that improved the horrible bed I had to sleep on. Story 4 My old car was in great working order but rough around the edges. Was in the process of buying a newer car to replace it. My old man advised me to scrap it, but I kept it around, fixed it up, polished, shined and fettled it until it looked almost new, spent next to nothing to just time. Then when it came to sell it, a family acquaintance inquired about it, but could only afford $75 of the asking price as she had gone through 3 cars in 6 months buying them off disreputable people. She was going through a tough time so I sold it for that reduced price. That was nearly 2 years ago and it's still going strong with no faults or repairs needed. Love seeing it still on the road, especially with a young family. Story 5 I live in a very small house in a very rich neighborhood. By comparison I am basically just trailer trash. These people throw out barely used suede couches worth thousands of dollars and stylized glass tables. Literally got a free working albeit old BMW because the guy was too lazy to sell or fix it. All of these rich trash is my treasure. Story 6 My entire job. No kidding, I work in building material salvage and resale. Useful building materials get tossed in the dump by the tons. Daily. I think my company diverted along the lines of 14 million tons last year alone. What does that cover, really? Anything from the front door to the back. Doors, windows, sinks, toilets, cabinets, lights. We're kinda like a Goodwill for the things you get at Home Depot. We get customers on their way to the dump, and we'll pick out the good stuff so that folks can fix their own houses on the cheap. It's great, and as a veteran dumpster diver, I love it. Story 7 The summer after my senior year I would go around to businesses and take old electronics out of the trash. I would fix them, clean them and sell them, made a couple grand to help me get through the summer. Story 8 In the dumpster of a former church. It had been closed for several years and eventually sold to become a nightclub or restaurant. I found an authentic Tiffany sign stained glass window. It had been removed from the church years ago and stored in a wooden crate to protect it. Apparently, the workers threw it in the dumpster not realizing its beauty and value as a creation of Louis Comfort Tiffany. Story 9 In my hometown there is a really preppy and expensive college. At the end of the spring semester, before the students went home, most would throw away everything they owned at the school and just fly home with a backpack. These people threw away Perfect's box, guitars, games, brand name clothes with tags still on them, furniture, fridges, you name it. I guess it was one man's trash, but these idiots were literally throwing away treasure. Story 10 years ago my wife and I were moving out of our apartment in a neighborhood with tons of college students. We were young ourselves, and graduating from a futon to a bed in the new place. The futon we were going to toss on moving day had been heavily used for a while. It had stains of all kinds on it, tons of cat hair semi-embedded in it, and was probably twice its original weight due to the skin flakes it had picked up over its 3 years of service. As I was dragging it to the curb, I was approached by a scraggly college kid. He was flabbergasted that I was throwing it out. Hesitatingly, he asked if he could possibly have it. I said yes. He threw it over his shoulder and marched away triumphantly. Story 11 My dog. She has epilepsy and someone paid a lot of money for her and did a lot of the legwork training her. She had some behavioral problems when I got her, but with a little work, she's an amazing pup. Someone literally left her in a garbage can and she was found, and now she's one of the best dogs I've ever owned. Story 12 When my late brother was going through chemo, he coped and occupied his time away from work by dumpster diving. On one of his dives, he found an old wicker umbrella stand out on the curb. He brought it home, and my sister-in-law really wanted him to get rid of it, so he gave it to me. He passed away 16 years ago, and I still have that wicker umbrella stand. It's the last present he ever gave me, and he'll never part with it. It's funny to think that someone was just cleaning out some junk from their home, never realizing that they'd wind up giving me a present that he'll always cherish. Story 13 My work had a small reference library. I mean really small, just a little room with some shelves. It was being closed to make space for a server room. Someone sent round an email if anybody wanted a full 12-volume 5 supplement edition of the Oxford English Dictionary. It took several trips to take it home. I love it. Story 14 One year Cinemark put stickers on their cups, redeemable for 100 American Airlines FF miles. I went through theaters after movies let out and dug in the trash cans and got enough points for a free trip to Europe. Story 15 Ooh, I have one. A family had a sale to get rid of their worldly goods and satanic temptations because they wanted to renew their faith in God. To each their own, no biggie. I did however walk out of that yard sale with a binder of old MTG cards that paid my student loans off and most of my car. Cost me $25 and they refused to take more money. I felt kinda bad, but they were just dead set on removing this kind of stuff. I just hope they didn't have a college-aged son who didn't know that their cards were sold for peanuts. Story 16 friend of mine stopped an acquaintance from dumping a puppy at the pound, but as she already had several dogs, asked if I wanted to adopt him. Dobby and I have been together for 8 years now and he's the best little dog I could ask for. To think someone was just going to toss him breaks my heart. Story 17 my elderly neighbor was throwing out a 1950-era stereo console last summer. I salvaged tons of parts from it, and used the parts to build a smoking good guitar amplifier. Story 18 my GFS ex-husband decided that rather than talk to her, he'd just start spending all his time at work, letting her take care of their son, while he developed a relationship with a coworker. After a while, he admitted the marriage wasn't working, and gave her a list of things she could do to fix it. She did said things, and was then told he never really thought it'd work, so on with the divorce whatever his loss as a widower, having a second chance with someone truly amazing, caring, and deeply loving is a godsend. Just wish he hadn't had to go through his before finding me. Story 19 this lady on my old block had her husband one day up and leave her and run off to Europe with a younger woman. Then she spiraled out of control and started dating her 19-year-old son's best friend. The son soon too left and never returned. Fast forward a few months and the house fell into foreclosure. On her sheriff eviction day, she put all her son's and husband's belongings outside and the neighborhood got to take whatever they wanted for free. I scored a bunch of euros and assorted coin collection, a bunch of Xbox games, and skis. I exchanged the euros for dollars and made some money, sold the skis online and still have the coins and Xbox games. Story 20 every freaking time I go to the thrift store antique store, I always find something interesting and neat that some other person donated. It's becoming a real addiction, so my instituted a mandatory one in, one out policy to keep the clutter from getting out of hand, paging or thrift store hauls. Story 21 when people complain about being bored because they don't have enough on their to-do list, I think wasted time is some of the best time. Feeling the need to be productive 247 must be stressful. Story 22 I collect and restore old hand planes for woodworking. Most people just give them to me when they clean out their parents' or grandparents' garage. Most of the time I get them and they look like rusted pieces of garbage, but I can usually get them back looking good as new in a day or two. Story 23 when I was in college a friend of mine and I heard about a big screen TV someone had just left on the curb, so we went to check OT out and decided to wheel it back to our dorm and see if it worked. His room was on the ground floor so we wouldn't have to drag it up any stairs. We plugged it in and it worked. The only thing that wasn't working was the sound, but we just hooked up a set of speakers and it was fine. So we had this like 60-inch big screen TV that we got for free and used to play Smash Brothers for the rest of the semester. Story 24 I used to dumpster dive, wrote about it for IGN. In fact I found countless video games, steel cases, and even a 60 TV in dumpsters that people were just tossing away. Story 25 I once was walking down my alley and noticed a bunch of trash bags sitting out of the can. I took a peek in and noticed a Sega Dreamcast. Needless to say, I pulled open that bag and a few of the other ones in and out of the can. All in all I found the Dreamcast for controllers, a ton of Dreamcast games, bunch of Game Boy Advance games, Bionicles, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards. 12-year-old me hit the jackpot. I held on to all of that stuff for years. Later in high school, I found out one of my friends lived in that house that I found all that stuff at. In shock I told him about how I found all of his stuff. It turned out that he and his family were doing a huge house-wide cleaning session. Tons of stuff was getting thrown away and my buddy was also moving bedrooms. His mom had mixed up a few garbage bags with all his old stuff he had packed up to store away and chucked it all. Then when they realized the trash had already come the next day, so I ended up saving all of his stuff from the dump and was able to return all of it to him years later. He let me keep the Dreamcast and the Bionicles though. Also literally, one man's accidental trash was my treasure. Both of those days hold very fond places in my memory. Story 26 my uncle worked at a local recycling area, where you would dump bigger pieces of trash, like electronics, furniture etc. A lot of the furniture devices I used in my first homes came either from there or were in some other way ready to be thrown out, like an entire kitchen, living room cupboards, sofas, TVs, lamps, some kitchen utensils, etc. Some things I understood, but with some stuff I couldn't really understand why they would throw it away. Story 27 a neighbor put a free sign on an Elna sewing machine circa 1960s. My husband picked it up, fixed a couple of things, and learned how to sew thanks YouTube. Story 28 I've made a very nice living for 18 years and counting by making art from old, recycled license plates. My work has financed multiple other businesses as well as allowed me to pursue an acting career, meet presidents and celebrities, and it all started out because I was trying to impress a girl who was an artist. Story 29 my landlord bought this old junky hearse from this guy out in Oregon, not really abnormal because my landlord has about 20 of them. Thing is when he got there he immediately recognized that the car wasn't really a hearse but a 59 Cadillac Metro Meteor ambulance. He took it from the guy's place for $3,000. And sold it less than a month later for $50,000 to Sony for some movie they are making. Yes, that movie. Story 30 oh man LPT go to your local university at the end of move-out day. People leave totally fine stuff everywhere. I moved put of my living area last and scored an awesome desk chair and a TV stand. There were couches and stuff too, but I only took what I needed. The university had all the stuff hauled off a day or two later. Story 31 cast iron pan I own. Someone didn't want it and was about to chuck it. I took it out of the trash. It was a little worn, but cast iron can be salvaged easily. You take care of a cast iron pan, it'll take care of you. Brand new, they are not cheap, and if someone wants to toss it, take it out of their hands and take it yourself. Never use soap, use only minimal water, and season it as needed. It's great. I love my cast iron pan. Story 32. I had this disgusting preserved paw of some real furry animal lying around my dorm for a couple of semesters and mainly used it as a doorstop and to sometimes maybe gross people out. Anyways, one time the new girlfriend of my roommate was over and her eyes immediately fixated on this goofy half-skeletonized piece of. Turns out she was a practicing Wicca, which, she asked if she could pick it up and then started caressing it and sucking on the hairy bones. I was like, WTF. And she explained that I had been in possession of one of the last remaining limbs of the great Erdfarkle god who had retreated back into his burrow Erdschwain hole many centuries ago. She was certain that it was capable of casting powerful magic. Sure. Story 33. My uncle helped us move some furniture into our house, and he brought his young son. He was checking out a 3-sided engineering ruler. We gave it to him because my husband gets them all the time at career fairs. My cousin was so excited, and brought it that weekend to a family reunion, and all my other cousins got too stoked and started asking for them. Story 34. A person I know inherited an old 1991 Taurus SHO from their late grandfather. It had sat idle for 9 months and wouldn't start, so they planned to scrap it. I matched the scrapper's offer of 100, took it home and replaced the battery, and what do you know, it starts right up. That was my first car and I still drive it, man. I love that thing. Story 35. Was assisting in the retirement process of an officer cataloging all his effects, where he would point out what he would take and the rest to be disposed. Spotted a pocket watch I quite liked and a couple of nice pens, both of which he decided not to take with him. Asked for permission to keep the pocket watch and hang on to the pens for office work. We kept having officers forget to return pens when signing for documents, borrowing them for meetings. Turns out the pocket watch is worth a neat 50, but I'm hanging on to it because it has the badge of the RAF on the front. The pens were given by Lockheed Martin and turned out to be rather high-quality ballpoints. I took them with me when I finished my national service. So yes, small trinkets that hold some value to me as items from my national service, which the officer was okay with letting me hang on to. Story 36. 2 of my previous roommates loved to toss spoiled food. And by spoiled they mean slightly abnormal. Chicken has a burn spot. Spoiled, better toss it. Peanut butter is left open for an hour. Spoiled, better toss it. Bread is kinda flattened. Spoiled, better toss it. So I used to hang around when they cooked to eat the spoiled food. Story 37. Used to do to the scrapyard between classes in college. I found all sorts of neat things that were thrown out. I found a projector for 2. I use it to watch movies outside by the fire. Found an old signal generator from the 60s that I paid $7 for. Found some flat screen TVs that needed capacitors switched out. I paid $15 for the 55 inches and $12 for the 43 inches. Found a few treadmill motors that I paid $5 each for and sold them on eBay for $40-70 each. Story 38. My mom bought a granddaughter a small heart necklace from a thrift store because she always asked to either wear the necklace or just look at it, so she bought her one of her own. Got one for 2. The girl never takes it off and it's been 2 years. Story 39. A guy was selling an old Xbox One S that was no longer working for $15. He said it wouldn't turn on. I bought it because I thought I knew what could have been wrong with it. I thought it just needed a new power supply brick. I was right, took it home, bought the part off Amazon for cheap, fixed it, and to this day still have it. Saved me a lot of money buying the thing new. Cost about $40 total, rather than almost $300 new. Story 40 years ago, I moved out of town with my best friend at the time. He got into a school far away, and didn't want to live on campus. At the time, I worked in a Subway sandwich shop as an assistant manager. We came up with the idea that I'd find another restaurant to work in near the school he got into so that we could move in together, as I knew we'd miss each other like crazy and I had nothing tying me down at the time. After some searching, I found an opening for a management gig at, you guessed it, another Subway sandwich shop right down the street from the school. I applied, got an interview, we found an apartment, packed up a U-Haul truck and hit the road. Not quite as simple as it sounds though. All these things took months to get into place. If you've ever used a U-Haul location before, you've probably seen the little giveaway areas around the storage units. These are small, roped-off, indoor areas where you can toss things you don't need or want. Sometimes when you move, you head to a smaller place and realize there's a lot of stuff you can't keep, like big furniture or various decorations. On the day we left, I noticed one of these spots in the U-Haul store for the first time, and in it was a single painting of a buffalo. It was magnificent. I took it without a thought, and we head for our new home. I hung that painting up and couldn't believe someone got rid of it. It's amazing. I stood in awe of how well painted it was, and was wishing I could let the artist know how happy their throwaway made me. It was my first cherished possession. I made sandwiches for a living and had rent to pay at this point, so my bedroom consisted of a twin-sized bed, a 13-inch TV and this buffalo on the wall. No dresser, my clothes were in bags, but I loved that buffalo. About 7 years later, that buffalo's gone everywhere with me. My friend and I still hang out and visit, although we don't have our bachelor pad anymore. Today my fiancé and I live in a home together. We both work part-time while we're going to school to become teachers, and the buffalo sits above our mantle, watching our lives unfold. I plan to have that buffalo in my will one day. I'm a huge fan of art, and it's only because someone threw away a brilliant painting and happened to leave it in my walking path. I've still never been able to track down the artist and thank them. The only clue I have is their initials and Spring 14 written on the frame. I'm guessing it was a spawn of one of the local community colleges during their Spring 2014 semester. If I ever do track them down, I'll update. Story 41 used to work at Tim Hortons in high school, and I would take all the donuts home that were going to be thrown away and sell them at school the next day for $1 each. Made decent money doing that. Story 42 next door neighbor rolled out an old push mower with a rusted through deck for the trash pickup. I had a mower with a good deck, but the engine had seized up. He watched me as I took the engine off his, put the seized up engine back on his deck, rolled it back out to the road, and proceeded to cut my grass with my newly repaired lawnmower. Story 43 lived across the street from the dumpster in my old apartment. That was so fun. One person moved out and decided they didn't want to take their books. All their books, most hardback and brand new, how-to, history, non-fiction, fiction, etc. I pulled out so many books for myself, my friends and family, then loaded up a bunch to take to the library, and also set as many as I could around the dumpster for other people to take. Also a nice, older KitchenAid mixer with all its accessories that needed a new switch. Brand new Tupperware still had stickers on, decorative baskets, an antique chair. Also, made friends with the raccoons who would get stuck in the dumpster. I put in big sticks for them to crawl out on, good times. Story 44 I was at a media store and I was looking for a movie in particular, and my sister made a joke about the live-action Street Fighter movie. As she pointed to it on the shelf I said, "Oh, I was looking for that," and grabbed it off the shelf. My sister was a little dumbfounded. Story 45 I was at our local town dump small town in South Lanarkshire, Scotland, getting rid of some old wooden pallets. As I walked past the skip container they have for smaller electrical items, I caught something, went over to have a closer look. Yes, that is indeed a classic Casio CZ1000 synthesizer from 1984. Sitting there, partly concealed by an old electric lawnmower. Long story short, it was in perfect working order, and I sold it on eBay a week or so later for $100. Story 46 someone in my apartment complex moved out and left a bunch of broken furniture and miscellaneous items by the garbage. One of those items was a guitar with no strings. I cleaned it up and sold it for $900. Story 47 some people were throwing out what appeared to be a perfectly fine office chair. It looked more like a gaming chair to be honest, but it was a really nice chair and it didn't look like it had any issues. Took it home and gave it a bit of a scrub to clean it. I've been using it for the past 4 years. Nothing wrong with it at all. Story 48 an old coworker threw away a Cirque du Soleil bag only because she dropped Coca-Cola inside and it was sticky. Me, a Cirque du Soleil merch collector, knew the bag is waterproof, retrieved it from the trash, washed and kept it for me when. Story 49 8 years ago, back when I was just a kid in high school, I was about to start my second army in Warhammer 40k. A guy at one of the local stores had a Land Raider 70 model that he up gluing together, so he just gave it to me for free. At that point in my life, the most money I'd ever had of my own to spend was about 30 at a time, saving up 10 a month, so getting a 70 model for free was amazing to me. It especially makes me sad, because now 30 can't even get you a basic troop for most armies. Story 50 found a bookshelf sitting on the curb, rang the owner's doorbell and asked what was wrong with it if I'm bringing something with wood rot into my house. Oh nothing, but it doesn't hold my magazines very well. It's a bookshelf, shelf for books. No, it doesn't hold your magazines. Can I take it? Sure, if you want, but I don't know what use you'll get out of it. I'm sure I'll find something, thanks. And now I can house my entire Agatha Christie Dorothy Sayers paperback collection all together in a lovely walnut bookshelf. Story 51 got my current job as night security after the old guy basically real-life rage quit. The time shift was up his life. For me, getting into a proper full-time job with benefits and a living wage instead of just barely above minimum unfucked my life. Best thing to happen to me professionally by far. Story 52 a lot of occult books. Take Rudolf Steiner, Rosicrucian and founder of the Anthroposophical Society, which I belong to. He wrote a lot of books and a lot of people during the 1960s found their occult books written by him were no longer proper in mainstream society, so they packed them up in boxes. They died, their children see a first edition and outline of occult science by Rudolf Steiner and have no idea of the value of it, but they chalk it up as some nonsense and sell it to a bookstore. Yes, the recent edition is free online, but someone like me, who enjoys owning first editions, those finds are rare. Usually I end up paying $500 to $1,500 for a first edition of one of his books. When I can find them, on rare occasion, you'll find one in a used bookstore for $10. Story 53 a company one of my friends worked for was upgrading their desktop computers and selling the old ones off. My friend said he thought they were Intel i7 processors and $25 apiece for the complete desktop. I asked immediately if he could get me two. Story 54 bought an old print in its original frame at a second-hand store for $20, just because I liked it. Later on some research showed that I own an original Arthur Rackham print from the turn of the century. Story 55 one of my most prized possessions is a 5-string Ibanez solid body bass, and the matches up amazing, even among guitars of the same model line. Mine is a piece of art. A woman had bought it for her husband as a birthday present, but for whatever reason he didn't like it so she returned it, but it was beyond whatever their return policy was, so it was technically used. 21-year-old me walked in 3 hours after the woman had unloaded it, and I took it home for about 50 of what it was worth, and I love that thing. Story 56 found a carpet laying in the middle of the road one day. It must have fallen off a moving truck. On my way home I noticed it was still there, so I pulled over and managed to fit it in my car. It's been covering the floor in my room for about 4 years now, and the color matches my bed and curtains. Story 57, I literally found a 100-year-old trash pile behind a local castle. I found gorgeous crystal perfume bottles and silver dishes. My apartment looks like it's out of a different time. Story 58, haha. Over here we have the occasional curbside collection, where the local council encourages folks to put large items out on the nature strip to be taken away and disposed of. Of course, plenty of folks will be keeping an eye out for any goodies that might be getting chucked out. A lot of my friends are heavily into the hard rubbish, that's what said items are generally called, whether they're left out during the official collection period or not seen, and will scour the streets for hidden treasures. In fact, the house where several members of that group live, basically our home base, is largely populated by items of furniture they've salvaged from the curb. No, it's not as ghetto as it sounds. It's actually a really cool setup. They have all sorts of weird items. Edito, and one time, in the early days of that place, my best buddy and I were coming back from an exceptionally baked pizza mission when we stumbled across a tall wooden totem pole left in an alley outside a shop. We had to have it. I carried the pizzas as my friend lugged this unwieldy object the rest of the way home, like Jesus bearing his cross or some. It was surreal. That totem pole now sits in a corner of the pad, watching over all who chill before it. Story 59 found a ton of new batteries on the ground. The box looked like it had been struggled with, and then the person gave up. I picked them up, took them up, and then I went home and put them in my Xbox One S controller, and had a great time with my whole box of Duracell batteries that I didn't drop a dime on. Story 60 saw a Craigslist ad for a year-old Craftsman bagger lawnmower that would not start. They wanted $200 for it. In jest, I replied to the ad with an offer of $20,000, saying I would be willing to pay that just to see if I could get it running again. The seller balked at such a low counteroffer. I wished him the best on selling a non-running mower for $200 and suggested he contact me if no one buys it. He called me a week later. I paid for it, took it home, primed the carburetor, and it started right up. I have been using it 5 years now. Dude just did not know how to cold start a lawnmower. Story 61, I found a John Deere riding mower in the trash. Rich neighborhood. The mower had been pushed 150 yards from the garage to the trash bins and had a pair of jumper cables wrapped around the steering wheel and an empty can of starter fluid spray in the cup holder. The only thing wrong with it was that it needed a new battery. I sold it the next day for $600. Story 62 posted this to another thread recently. Many years ago, a few friends and I found several large garbage bags of expired donuts. Nothing gross. Just hundreds of donuts that couldn't be sold the next day, so we loaded them into the back of our car and came up with a plan for the evening. We spent the night driving around town and stopping near the houses of people we knew, would make donut trails going from their door porch, through their yards and down the sidewalk to some secret location. At the end of each trail we'd leave a treasure: old books, VHS tapes, old toys, etc. The next day the word was buzzing around town of these mysterious donut trails and various treasures people found. Some people only found a lot of ants. Oh well, it was a lot of fun. Story 63, I went to an estate auction in some middle of nowhere town that my grandpa was attending since I had nothing else to do on my day off. There was a beat-up but complete classic car that didn't run being sold in the auction, and my grandpa let me bid on it with his number. I got the car and some rims for $1,700, and we trailered to my grandparents' farm and managed to get it running again a week later. I did some research and found out I had bought a rare 1965 Impala Sports Sedan 4-door hardtop, and now take it to shows while I'm restoring it. Story 64, coworker way higher up the chain than me got a job offer in a different country, but he had to move the next week. Gave me a sturdy bunk bed with brand new mattresses. Only catch was I had to pick it up that day. Later looked it up. The same thing would have cost me $6,000 to buy used somewhere else. Story 65, don't know if this counts, but years ago I was trying to buy an iPhone 3GS off Craigslist with money I got for my birthday. I think this was around the time the 4 came out, so the price had dropped. I found one guy selling a 8GB one for $240, which was a little pricey for me, but my dad took me to the guy's house where he and his wife lived. The guy takes the phone out of a kitchen drawer and looks to make sure it's the one for me. He takes a look at it and sees a really tiny cosmetic crack in the back. iPhone 3GS had a plastic back and says, "Oh, it's cracked. How about 75? I bought it instantly. When I come home I realize it was also 64GB. Story 66, true story, and it happened just 2 days ago. So me and two buddies were at the town dumpsters. They have a pull-up dumpster service free of charge for residents, and there's two 20-foot long or so containers, with space in the middle, so you have to pull up to one or the other. I jumped out of the truck and climbed one, to see which one was emptier, so I could let the truck know we had a truck bed and a trailer full of trash to throw away. The very first thing I see is a load of pristine lumber, not just stumps and cuttings of 1x4s and 2x4s, either. We're talking 5-foot-long 12 by 12 beams. About a dozen 3x6 boards that were well over 10 feet long each, a couple 12-foot treated 4x4s, and one giant 2x12 board around 12 feet long. Now me, I'm just a hobbyist, my buddy is a carpenter, and we're roomies, and just happened to really need to build a chicken coop, among other things. Needless to say, we got excited. We claimed enough out of that dumpster that it filled the bottom of the trailer up completely, near as we can figure. It was about 400 worth of lumber, if not more, and now we have a bunch of free projects to work on, and it was all because we just happened to arrive and check the right dumpster at the perfect time to throw away our trash. Story 67. I currently use a massive 4x6 mahogany face desk for college work. Copped it for $75 at a garage sale. Turns out it used to be in the House of Representatives, probably from the 1970s if I had to guess. Has the serial number on the inside and everything. It also contains secret coordinates leading to the location of the Real Declaration of Independence. Story 68. Pretty literal, but half of my apartment's furniture is trash I picked up in my neighborhood. Problem is people are stupid, can't and won't fix a simple loose leg in a chair or just want to change style and don't bother selling back or even giving away those perfectly fine furnitures. Here most people move apartment on the same day every year. Yes, real dumb idea. So on July 1st, you get street covered in trash TVs, couch, clothing, kitchen stuff, you name it. Story 69. I frequent this thrift store that normally has all kinds of wallets in a bin for 99c. That's the first place I go to when I get there, so I went and found a Hermes wallet, listed it on eBay for 99c starting bid. I had checked the others and they were going for 200 and above. Within 2 hours the bid was at 87. Somebody offered 150. Buy it now. I didn't waste time and immediately changed my listing and sold it. Adrenaline was high. I now wish I waited on the auction. Story 70. Oh boy, I had mine last week, and it's also a raised by narcissists with rented old parents story. When I was out, my mom came to my place to take some things to charity, like she said the week prior, and I gave her one of my spare keys, because I wasn't going to be home at the time. Big mistake when I returned. Some things that I didn't use anymore were missing, and I thought cool, I didn't use that thing much. I'd be better if someone else have it. But I missed something really important. My arm desk, the one I used to work from home sometimes. I asked her about it and she said that it was almost in pieces. You'll throw that out anytime soon, so I did the work for you, but it wasn't, the arm just needed a new screw. She never cared much for my things anyway, so that is not something that bothered me much. But a week later, when I'm at my mother's house to see my brother, there was my desk with my mother using it. Not just the desk, but all the things that were missing from my house. Were there ill be short with this, but we argued for quite some time about she literally stealing my desk. I didn't care much the other things, but I needed that desk, and she started the "you just have this now anyway because I gave you education, etc." monologue. I just took my spare keys back, get out of there, filed a police report about that. I had some others about her sisters too and changed my locks, in case that she copied the keys. She did this before, and always came to my house and used all my things without saying anything. Last week while walking through my neighborhood, I saw someone throwing out a desk exactly like mine, and asked him if I could have it, and he just gave me without asking any question. Later that day, I pressed charges against my mom and my aunts. Now I have a new arm desk and either my mom or her sisters can come 100m close to my house. What a wonderful week I had since TLDR my mom stole my arm desk. Said I just had because of her. I filed a report about this, and now I have a new arm desk, and neither my mom or aunts can come close to my house.